If I vanished before her birthday. I wasn't supposed to hear those words. But as I stood in the hallway that night, the soft hum of the dishwasher masking my footsteps, I heard my wife's voice. Sharp, quiet, and dripping with something colder than hate. I don't love him anymore. If he vanished before my birthday, that'd be the best thing that ever happened. Her tone was casual, almost amused. For a moment my brain refused to translate it. Maybe she was talking about someone else. Maybe she was joking. But then her friend laughed. That uncomfortable, pitying kind of laugh people use when they don't know what to say. And that's when I knew. She was talking about me. The distance between us. My name's Ethan Clark, and for 12 years, I thought I'd built a quiet, honest life with my wife Mara. We weren't perfect, no marriages, but I believed we were steady. She had her world of clients and social dinners. I had my work at the architecture firm. We still held hands when we walked, still kissed goodnight, still called each other love out of habit that felt genuine. But lately something had changed. She'd grown distant. Not angry, not cold, just distracted. As if her body was here but her mind lived elsewhere. I told myself it was stress, that she was tired, that maybe I wasn't doing enough. I started cooking more, surprising her with coffee in bed, trying to bridge a gap I didn't understand. She'd smile, murmur thanks, and go back to scrolling through her phone. The conversation that broke me. That night, after hearing her say those words, I stood in the hallway for a full minute, frozen. My heart pounded so hard I thought she'd hear it. Her voice continued, muffled through the kitchen wall. No, he doesn't suspect anything. He's just there. Like a ghost. I can't stand how kind he still is. Mara, her friend whispered. That's cruel. Maybe. But it's the truth. The air left my lungs in one long, shuddering breath. I backed away from the door, each step feeling heavier than the last, until I found myself standing in our darkened bedroom. The bed she slept in. The bed where we'd once laughed, dreamed, made plans for children that never came. And suddenly, every little memory felt poisoned. The next morning, when Mara woke, she was her usual self. Calm, distant, perfectly composed. Morning, she said softly, reaching for her coffee. Morning, I replied. My voice didn't crack. My face didn't betray anything. Architects are trained to hide flaws, to cover fractures before they collapse a structure. I watched her sip her drink, her eyes never meeting mine. She hummed as she checked her messages, smiling faintly at something on her phone. That smile, it wasn't for me. It hadn't been for me in a long time. The suspicion. For the next few days, I became an observer in my own marriage. Mara started working late more often, claiming meetings or client dinners. Her perfume lingered longer when she came home, her hair freshly brushed, her lips slightly smudged. One night I asked gently, "Who were you with?" She hesitated. "Just the design team. You know how these things go." He nodded. I didn't know, but I wanted to believe her. I wanted to cling to the illusion a little longer, if only to delay the breaking point. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't explode all at once. It seeps in, slow and quiet, until you realize the life you're living isn't real anymore. The message. It was a Friday when I finally saw it. The message that shattered the last bit of denial I had. She'd left her phone on the counter while showering. Normally I'd never touch it. But that morning it buzzed twice. Then again. Then a name appeared. Callan. The preview line read, "Can't stop thinking about last night. Same place tonight." My hands shook as I stared at the screen. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. The evidence was enough. Callan. A name she'd mentioned before. A client. A man she'd been working with on a home design project. I walked out of the kitchen, sat on the couch, and just stared at the wall. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped everything out and left an echo where my heart should have been. When she came downstairs, she smiled absent-mindedly. "Heading to a client meeting," she said, slipping on her coat. I just nodded. "All right. Be safe." And that was the moment I realized. She thought I was still the same man who trusted her. The discovery. I followed her that night. It wasn't planned. It wasn't something I ever thought I'd do. But when she left the house in a rush, I grabbed my keys and drove after her. She parked 2 blocks away from a cozy, dimly lit restaurant downtown, the kind meant for candlelight, not business meetings. I sat in my car and watched her walk inside. 5 minutes later, he arrived. Tall, confident, the kind of man who smiles like he already owns the world. They hugged. Too long. Too familiar. When he cupped her face and kissed her, my throat closed. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, watching the woman I loved belong to someone else. The confrontation. She came home late, pretending exhaustion. "How was your night?" I asked, calm, almost gentle. She blinked, startled. "Oh, you're still up." "I couldn't sleep." She nodded, setting her purse down. "Just dinner with Callan." "Business." I smiled, a thin, controlled curve. "I saw you." Her eyes widened slightly. Then, for the briefest moment, I saw panic. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by cold defiance. "You followed me?" she asked, her tone sharp. I needed to know the truth. Mara crossed her arms, her composure like armor. "Then now you know." "That's it," I whispered. "No apology. No explanation." She sighed, looking almost bored. "Ethan, it's been over for a long time. You just didn't see it. I stayed because I didn't want to hurt you." I laughed, bitter and broken. "You didn't want to hurt me. You said you wished I'd vanish before your birthday." That hit her. Her lips parted. You heard that?" "Yes." Silence filled the room, thick and suffocating. She lowered her gaze. "I didn't mean it. But we both knew she had." End of us. The next morning I packed a bag. No yelling, no dramatic scene. Just quiet resolve. I left my wedding ring on the table, next to the cold cup of coffee she'd made. She stood at the doorway watching. "So that's it." "Yeah," I said. "That's it. Where will you go?" "I don't know. Somewhere I can breathe again." Her eyes softened for a second, a flicker of something that might have been regret. But it faded quickly, replaced by the same detached expression she'd worn for months. "Goodbye, Ethan." Paused at the door. I used to think love meant staying no matter what. But now I know. Sometimes love means walking away before it kills you. Then I left. The first few weeks were numb. I stayed in a small rental outside the city, surrounded by boxes and silence. Every object reminded me of her. The shirt she'd folded, the coffee mug she loved, the faint scent of her perfume that seemed to haunt my clothes. At night, I replayed everything. The laughter, the small lies, the gradual fading of warmth. I tried to figure out the moment she stopped loving me. But there isn't one. Love doesn't vanish in an instant. It withers quietly, until there's nothing left to bury. One morning, I opened my email to find a message from her. Just a few lines. "I didn't expect you to actually leave. I hope you find peace, Ethan. I'm sorry, in my own way." I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. There was no peace in her apology. Only finality. A year later. It's been a year since that night. I've rebuilt parts of my life. New job, new apartment, new silence. Sometimes it still hits me in waves, that mix of loss and disbelief. But mostly I've learned to live again. I saw her once, in the city, holding hands with him. She looked happy, radiant even. I didn't feel anger anymore. Just a distant ache, like remembering a song you used to love but can't listen to now. That night I went home, poured a glass of whiskey, and looked out at the skyline. I thought about what she said, about wishing I'd vanish before her birthday. And in a way I did. The man she knew, the man who believed in her unconditionally, is gone. But the man who walked away that morning, he's still here. Stronger, quieter, free. Sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks about me. If she ever regrets how she ended things. But then I remember her voice. Calm, cruel, certain, wishing I'd disappear. And I smile not with bitterness but with peace. 'Cause I did vanish. Just not the way she meant.